I missed the whole class like that, with math recording. Okay. So we are going to do wireless part 1, and in this part we are going to do Bluetooth. It says simply Bluetooth, but basically there are 3 wireless personal area networks, PAN standards, which are very popular. First one is Bluetooth, which all of you have it, right? Second one is Zigbee. Zigbee is what is being used by the smart grid. Zigbee is designed for the sensors. All the sensor networks people use Zigbee. Okay? And the third one is UWB, which is the ultra wideband. So my problem is if I don't talk about one of them, you really miss, important thing. So I got to talk about all of these at the same time. We don't have that much time. So let's see how much we can do. So we'll talk about Bluetooth here, and this is how they fit in. So personal area network is 10 meters or less. Wi-Fi is 100 meters or less. Local area network is 100 meters or less. And in kilometers, we get into metropolitan area networks. And beyond kilometers, we get into wide area networks, right? So we are in this here, PAN, personal area networks. We'll talk about Bluetooth, Zigbee, and something else, right? UWB. So that is how the distance was. Previously, we showed the distance, but the data rate also changes accordingly. So if you have a very high data rate, generally the distances are low. If you have a low data rate, you can go longer distance. All right. So there is something called distance bandwidth product. So longer distance, less bandwidth; more bandwidth, less distance, and so on and so forth. So this is the thing we are talking about. 15.4 is Zigbee, very low rate. Very, very low rate actually. It's very, very low rate. It is less than the Bluetooth, and the range is also not very much. Bluetooth has higher range, but the rate is low. And then there is UWB, which has much higher rate. All right. So here we are talking about Bluetooth. Bluetooth has the rate about a megabits, and Zigbee is less than a megabit. And this is hundreds of megabits. We already finished Wi-Fi. Later on, we'll talk about these other standards. If you were to talk about mobility, that's another dimension, and the mobility also changes with the data rate. If you are moving very much, the data rate is low. On the other hand, if you are moving slowly, then you can have a high data rate. So this is high mobility. Vehicular mobility, you don't get very high data rate. So these are the standards that we're talking about. Mostly are personal area network. There is not much mobility. They are stationary. So all the 15s are stationary. And then as we go into cellular networks, they become highly mobile. Okay. So Bluetooth. Now Bluetooth is everywhere. So I don't have to explain to you that the Bluetooth can be used in cell phones. It can be used in speaker phones. It can be used in gaming devices. Right. So that is kind of common. It gives you 720 kilobits to 10 meters. That's how far it goes and what the speed is. And therefore, it competes with infrared. So originally, the computers used to have this infrared port in the back, and you could connect to a printer wirelessly by using infrared. But nowadays, we do Bluetooth. Okay? It's same price range. So why is it called Bluetooth? Because it was started by Ericsson, which is a Danish company. So they named it after their famous king, Harald Blåtand. His original name was this, but he was fond of blueberries, so he was called the Bluetooth king. All right, so that's how the name came about. It has nothing to do with the technology. It's just a random name based upon the company that invented it, Ericsson. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to have RF communications, what means cell phones over short distances. So you have two cell phones. How do you talk to each other? I mean, they could have done infrared, but they wanted to do RF. Infrared is light, and they wanted to do radio. So they started some work in that area, and later on IBM, Intel, Nokia, everybody else joined it, and they formed a special group called Bluetooth SIG. So just like Wi-Fi, this is an organization, a special interest group. So Bluetooth organization. So they met at that place under that organization, and then they came up with a specification in '99, and then they took it to IEEE. So here is what happens. Sometimes the standard is first done in IEEE and then it goes outside. In case of 11, for example, it went to Wi-Fi. In case of WiMAX, it first was 16 and then it became WiMAX. But in case of Bluetooth, the standard was already done outside, and then they brought into IEEE to get it a standard name. So that came out, was approved in 2002. It took 3 years after that, basically, to follow all the IEEE things. And the key features are low power, so it doesn't take too much power, and it is not very expensive, and it doesn't take too much space. So it's a very small chip, very cheap chip, and very low power, so you can have batteries last for a long time. Okay, that is the end. All right, we'll continue after this in the next class.